What's going on, witches, magicians, sorcerers, pagans? You know who you are. Mike D, Son of a Witch Podcast. That's right, I'm back. It's been a while, I know. What can I say? If you follow me on TikTok, you probably already have a pretty good idea of why I was I don't know, not out of commission. I've been really busy, but not doing the podcast for the past year. So normally if I took a hiatus between seasons 1, 2, or 3, it was normally about a month or two, and then I was back at it. This last hiatus took a while. So much, in fact, that I almost wasn't going to revive the show. Not meaning that I was tired of it or not having fun with it anymore, but more or less because life had just gotten busy. The show at the end of season 3 was kind of at a real high. At the end of season 3, we ended with, I think it was listened to in 67 countries. I think it's 69 now. But, no, I'm not going to make the obligatory joke there. But, yeah, it was doing really well. And I I don't know, I wanted to kind of go out on a high, I guess. Ended on a high note. And so I wasn't going to stop podcasting. I was, one reason, I was approaching the end of my voiceover contract and kind of wrapping up a project now that is going to allow me to complete that. And then I'll be what I jokingly refer to as a free agent. I'll be able to do whatever jobs that I want. I'm probably gonna do a lot of audiobook narration because it's easy. I can do it pretty quickly, and life has gotten really busy with my day-to-day, which I'll get into in a moment. But all that to say, Son of a Witch is back. Season 4 will not be the last season. I'm going to continue doing it. As any of you that have been with me since season 1, you can hear in my voice right now, been a little bit under the weather, which is weird because I live on an island and I was pretty convinced you couldn't get sick on an island. I'm joking, but yeah, so just on the tail end of that, but my throat and my voice are still kind of a little under the weather. However, what was I saying? Yes. So going to continue it beyond this season. Any of you that have been with me since season 1 will know that the show kind of evolves from season to season and sometimes during the season. The reason for that is, one, I've learned some things since the first episode. If you listen to the first episode of season 1, which was the first episode ever, and then you listen to the last episode of season 3, there's a massive difference in the audio quality, the production quality. Reason being, even though I'm a voice actor and I've been in studios a lot, I had never really done editing. I had never really done producing. I had to become kind of like a social media manager. And yeah, it took on a life of its own. And before I knew it, I was doing the show more than I was doing my normal job, which was fine by me because this show is a labor of love. But it's not lost on me that some of you tuning in, this may be your first time ever listening to Son of a Witch. You may have been referred here by someone else that listens, may have stumbled across it, you may have seen it on TikTok. Either way, welcome. My name is Mike D. I'm not going to go real deep into my bio or background because you can listen to, again, season 1, episode 1. And that whole episode is kind of about, my upbringing and what got me to this point. But real briefly, in a nutshell, I have been practicing for over 30 years. My grandmother was a witch. No, I'm not one of these, I have witch blood, I'm better than you. No. It just so happens that my grandmother was a witch. She was very magical, very psychic, very powerful. And from a very young age, she started teaching me. At age, I think 13 was the first time I was doing full-on seances with her out in the barn. So I had an interesting upbringing because my grandmother was the only witch in the family. Everyone else was a Southern Baptist Christian. So if you think about that, I had a very interesting upbringing. I was in vacation Bible school every summer. I, to this day, can recall scripture. I've read the Bible front to back numerous times. And so many people go, well, if you're a witch, you probably hate Christianity. You don't believe in God or hate God. Not true. If I did, then I would hate most of my family and friends. So maybe not friends, but family at least. So no, I don't hate Christianity. I'm evolved enough, I'd like to think, that I don't disbelieve in the Christian God. I just disbelieve the Christian God is the only deity that exists, because that is exceedingly arrogant. But yeah, that is kind of how long I've been practicing. Once I got to be in high school, I became very obsessed, I would say, with theology and religion. And I did a deep dive into pretty much any religion I could find, because at that point I had been not subjected, but privy to Christianity and a pagan path, predominantly witchcraft, but folk magic, hoodoo, a large cornucopia of schools of thought and magic there. So I wanted to see if this was indeed kind of what I wanted and what was right for me. And so Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism, Kabbalah, you name any type of religion or faith or practice, and Rosicrucianism, all those things. I did a deep dive and came out of it realizing that yes, this magical, spiritual, pagan path was definitely for me. Now, have I always considered myself, because the reason I started this show during COVID was boredom. I was bored as fuck. But the other reason was any other male witches, sorcerers, magicians, whatever you choose to call yourself, out there will resonate with what I'm about to say. But even though I know lots of many genders now that are witches, there is a large misconception still to this day, sadly, by many, that men cannot be a witch. And I don't know any other way to say this, so I'm going to try to say it as gently as possible. That is the biggest crock of fucking shit that I've ever heard in my life. Anyone that believes that has not truly done a deep dive into the history of witchcraft, because if you had, you would know otherwise. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but for instance, at the memorial in Salem, you can actually see all the people that were put to death during the trials in Salem. You can see when they were put to death and how. Most of the time, one reason I really hate this meme were the daughters of the witches you didn't burn. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. It's annoying for various reasons, but one being, not all witches are women. You can be any gender and be a witch. Two, if you look at those memorials of the ones put to death in Salem during the trials, almost half are men or boys. And three, most of the people, not just in Salem, but worldwide during the trials, were not necessarily put to death by being burned at the stake. They were hung, they were pressed by stones. It was various grotesque methods. But anyway, to know all these things, you have to know the history, and anyone that knows this show knows that I'm big on making your foundation the history of the path you choose to follow, because without that, you can't truly have a true understanding and wrap your head around everything. But again, I digress, and I do that a lot. So where was I? Yes. So anyway, by the time I went through that period, I came out of it realizing that yes, I am a magical being. To this day, during the first few seasons, I've always referred to myself as a witch. In the last year to 2 years, I kind of lean more towards the term sorcerer, and I'll get into why as I go a little bit more into this episode. But just on the very surface of it, I work more with spirits than I ever have in my life, and I don't just mean like spirit as in the term for the universe or whatever deity you follow. I mean, I work with spirits, like conjuring spirits, not so much summoning and binding. I do that, but I prefer not to summon or bind because I wouldn't want someone demanding me to do something. So I try to approach anyway. That's a deep dive for a different episode, but you will hear me more now refer to myself as a sorcerer, because my path has never been that religious. That's why I've never really referred to myself as a Wiccan, because I feel like that's more ceremonial and religion aspect to our path. I've never been religious with it. I'm way more spiritual. I used to be labeled a lot of times as a chaos magician, because I was very focused on the practicality of magic and results. I wouldn't really say I'm a chaos magician, and again, there's various reasons why, but anyway, so I refer to myself as a sorcerer now, and again, like I say, we'll get into that later. But so then for a brief period, I joined the military right out of high school. Long story. I did my time for my 4 years and got out. Don't regret it. Don't cherish the time either, but suffice to say, without going in depth, I could have gone to college. Wasn't getting the help I needed to be able to, so that was the only choice I could think of at the time, because my father was in a relationship with a woman that was despicable and I needed to get away. So I did my time in the military, traveled, learned some things, got out, became a voice actor, and that's kind of what I've been doing since. I have done various voices, a lot of them cartoon. I don't know how well I could do it right now because, as you can hear, this is not how I normally sound. But we'll give it a shot. Nope, not going to be able to do it.
Hi, boys and girls. My name is Mickey Mouse. Welcome to my clubhouse.
Normally a lot better than that, but that's with damaged vocal cords right now. I also do Kermit the Frog here, coming to you live from the swamp. Me and Miss Piggy. And Patrick Star. I mean, I do a lot of voices. I joke that I have lots of voices in my head, and sometimes they talk. So I became a voice actor. I worked with various companies, most recently with a major company that I'm trying to get out of my contract with. And I became a dad. I have one son. He's amazing artist. And that's just the short and skinny of it. I have been briefly a resident writer for Witch Magazine out of the UK. I just recently finished the manuscript for a book that I have been writing for the last 2 years, trying to finish. Not going to go into the name or anything yet. I have some trusted people proofreading and kind of giving me some insight into that. But it is a full-on novel, right under 300 pages. It's about a witch. It is fiction. It's about a witch, a male witch, who goes to Vermont to finish writing his book. Does some magical research while there, and various things happen. It does involve the goddess Hecate, because she is, we call her Dark Mama in my close circles. There's that too. So, that's pretty much it. That's the intro, long intro because it's been a while. But we're going to wrap that up. I'm going to go ahead and take a pause, grab something to drink, and then we'll be right back, and we're going to go into the next segment. So stick around. And we're back. So, real quick, first of all, what you're going to see here is what you're going to see most of the time when I do any type of video episodes. This is my studio. Right now, one of the things that I said I would get into later in the episode, my wife and I help run a 501c3 nonprofit charity here on the island. And basically the gist of that charity, foster kids, when they hit 18, age out of the foster system. They may still have like a caseworker, someone that can help them, find medical care and things like that. But if they have not been adopted at that point, which as they get older, it becomes increasingly difficult to happen, they may find themselves on the street. And here on the island, we call that houseless, because the island is your home. You just don't have a house. And so what we do with our charity, we have about 38 acres, and we take these kids in from different various agencies on the island, and we help them build their own tiny cabin here on the property that they get to live in. We feed them 3 meals a day. We grow all of our, well, I won't say all, but most of our food here in the greenhouses on site. We're fully solar, off-grid. We teach them life skills from carpentry, gardening, livestock care, on up to like digital media, marketing, production, things like that. That way they can continue to stay and help us further this mission for years to come, or they can go out into the world and have these skills that we've helped them learn and make their own way. So something we love doing. We joke that we're semi-retired, but yet we work 6-7 days a week. And yeah, it's just something that we love. But anyway, so this is my studio here on the property. You'll see Stitch back here representing for the island holidays, Mele Kalikimaka. And yeah, so that's that. Now to the segment of the show, and I had somebody asking, are we going to have the same segments? Please don't get rid of A, B, or C. And this was considered, I guess, A, the one episode that people, or the one segment people did not want to lose, and that is what's flicking my wand and boiling my cauldron. Now, for those of you that are new to the show, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, go back to season 1, start from the beginning. Don't be lazy. Plus, you're going to see a more in-depth version of the episode today about Yule and the Wild Hunt and Krampus, because in that episode, it was a long episode, I think 2 parts, because I actually went real deep and hard, and I did not plan that. Let's rephrase that. I went really in depth into how Christians stole damn near every holiday that they celebrate from the pagans and rebranded it as their own. The various traditions, decorating a tree. I will say the meme, decorating a Christmas tree as witchcraft is not entirely accurate. It does annoy me when people do that, because it's not technically witchcraft. But it does say in the Bible, in a particular passage, that you should not take a tree from the forest and decorate it with gold and tinsel as the pagans do. That's paraphrasing, but yeah, so they are saying not to do it, but it's not considered witchcraft in the Bible per se. Anyway, but yeah, what's flicking my wand, boiling my cauldron, not ever gonna leave. It is a segment that's been around since the first episode, and I really love it. And yeah, so to give you an idea, what's flicking my wand are things that I'm enjoying, I'm loving, I'm really digging. It could be a book, it could be a new method of magic. It could be something I just learned, and it could be magically related, or it could be non-magically related. It just really depends. What's boiling my cauldron, as you may have figured out, is some things that are annoying me, frustrating me. One of the things that has been a regular frequenter of that segment is gatekeeping in our community, telling other people that they're wrong because they're not doing it the way you were taught or the way that you prefer, things like that. So another frequenter to that portion of the segment is thinking that men can't be witches. So yeah, I will tell you, like I tell many people, I have been, I've been practicing almost 35 years now. I know a thing or two. I've practiced with hoodoo workers, root workers, Rosicrucianists. I have practiced with Buddhist mystics, Jewish mystics. I have worked closely with people in voodoo. I've had a very, very, very broad and eclectic upbringing and education in magic. Some of the things that I have learned and witnessed and been taught by other people, I don't incorporate into my daily practice because they're closed systems. I was lucky enough to be able to get insight into that system, and through that was able to glean ways that I could utilize magic in other areas. But there are a lot of methods that I do include. Buddhist, hoodoo, root work, folk magic. I mean, there's a big melting pot that has gotten me to where I am now. I was briefly in a tradition. Any of you that have watched the show for any length of time know that tradition, and know that I am no longer a part of a tradition. And the reason is, up until, and I'll see, that would have been in the last 6 years, up until I joined that tradition, I had never joined a tradition. And the reason was, up until then, every example I had seen or witnessed or been privy to of a tradition or a school of magic or whatever, an initiatory practice, it normally always at some point kind of skewed from where it originally started and goes into areas that get political or cliquish or things like that. And this tradition was no different. I'm not going to air dirty laundry. I'm not going to, and I know people are listening to this from that tradition, hoping or almost expecting that I'm going to badmouth or trash someone or say something, and I'm not. One, I wouldn't give you the satisfaction if I was that type of person. Two, I know who I am, and there's no need to do that. But it did afford me a much needed look into it to realize that no, I was right in my feelings from the get-go, in that I just don't like traditions. You know, this particular one, without going into detail, started out with an amazing mission. With, you know, its purpose was defined. It was to spread magic and let people know that witches aren't bad, and to bring that term back, and, you know, to let people know that we're here in the community and we do good. And it did that for a long time. But as time goes on, it's become more of a brand. It's become more of an ego trip than it is about learning, education, and empowerment. And suffice to say, and then we'll move on, what happened to me, had it happened to anyone else, even someone that I didn't know, I would have been disgusted by it, and it would have been enough to turn me off of that particular path. So, to those listening that were hoping or expecting me to say something or, go into it, one, wasting my energy on your names is a waste of time. You're not worth it. And two, sorry to disappoint, but no, I'm a better person than that. So enjoy your pettiness, and we're gonna move on and keep doing awesome shit here. Now, as far as what's flicking my wand, is the show's back. Flicking my wand is the fact that I live on an island. And that's part of what, in the last year, kind of took my focus for a little bit. Met someone in recent years and got married a little over a year ago. Just decided that we were going to move to the island, and we did, and have loved every minute since. Eventually moved into this property and started helping run this charity, which has been immensely rewarding. So that's what's flicking my wand right now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Here in a few months, I will be seeing my son again for the first time in over a year. Longest time I've ever been without him. So definitely looking forward to that. And life is good. Every fucking day is awesome. So that's what's flicking my wand. As far as what's boiling my cauldron, well, we touched on it briefly just a moment ago. Traditions or any group, whether it be a Facebook page, tradition, whatever, that uses their position to bully or control or have ego trips. I don't like that shit. You'll never hear on this show me telling anyone that their methods are wrong. You might hear me say that I wouldn't personally try that, or I have and it didn't work for me, but I'm never going to tell you that you're wrong, because let's be honest, do we do magic the way it was done hundreds of years ago? No. There's no way that we could know how. I know many druids, and that is another path that I'm currently studying, because it's one that I've always been interested in. But I know many druids that will point blank tell you this is a reconstruction of what we believe to be as close to the way it was practiced in the past by our ancestors, but we have no way of knowing, because there's just not enough written account to have verification of that. So same way with what we do. And no matter what type of magic you practice, it's most likely not going to be verbatim. I don't know many magicians or sorcerers or witches that flip open the lesser keys of Solomon and just knock something out and just willy-nilly and like it's nothing. I don't know many people that do that, because the methods in those books, in case you're not aware, the Lesser Keys of Solomon, the Grimoire Verum, there are certain classical grimoires, is what they're called, which are believed to be, original, like an original Book of Shadows, an original spell book. The Lesser Keys of Solomon, for instance, a lot of that works with spirit conjuring, binding, summoning, even has the seals and things in there for how to do it. But reading it straight out of that book could be very difficult, because the verbose nature of it, the language that they use is a little bit different in how they say things. Some of the ingredients may not be feasible for today. There's a lot of reasons. So, I guess that would be the biggest thing. There are other things in day-to-day life in our world, and I'm not going to get into it, but most of you probably know where I'm headed with that. Um, Recently, that have occurred that just disgust me and make me sick. But all we can do is try to fight against tyranny and oppression and ignorance, and just try to do all the good that we can. So, yeah, that's what's flicking my wand and boiling my cauldron. Stitch, you got anything you want to add? No? Okay. So that's it for this segment, and just give me a moment. I'm going to take another drink, wet the whistle, and we will be right back. And we're back. So, this segment is another segment that has been around since season 1, I'm pretty sure. And that is the magical herb of the week. Now, sometimes I will do a magical herb and magical stone or crystal of the week. Just kind of depends. But this week, I'm going to have more than one herb. So we're just going to focus on those. Now, these are just briefly, and I mean very briefly, the names and kind of some brief methods of how you can use these. Once we do the topic of this week, which is all about Yule, Krampus, the Wild Hunt, all sorts of things thrown in there. The Yule Cat. There's various things that we're going to talk about. This episode will not focus as much on the ways that our traditions, pagan meaning, were taken and stolen and perverted, you could say, by Christianity. It's not going to be as much, like, well, Christians say this, but this is, it's not going to be that comparison. If you want that, I believe, I can't remember what episode it is, but in season 1, it's titled Yule, Xmas, and a Partridge in a Pear Tree, I believe is the name of the episode. I've done a lot. So if you want that type of deep dive into it, you can go listen to that one. But I think for the most part, people are pretty aware that Christianity took everything. The Son of God from the Bible was not born December 25th, etc., etc. So yeah, we're gonna dive right into that, and basically the reason for that. Hang on, I gotta pull up. There we go. Yeah. So first of all, rosemary is gonna be one. And the ways they use rosemary are varied, but it is an herb of the sun. It can be used to decorate the wassail bowl, as a table dressing. You can make a wreath out of it, or intertwine rosemary into like pine or whatever else you're using for a wreath. You can place it on your solstice altar. You can burn it during a ceremony. You can simmer it with apples, orange slices, cloves, and cinnamon sticks to perfume the house. Now, cinnamon is a symbol of wealth and prosperity, also passion, lust, and it can be used in different crafts and recipes as well. And then oranges represent the sun at Yule, and the hope that daylight, health, and other things are going to increase. Dried orange slices can actually be used to make garlands, which is something that my wife is currently doing. So these are ways that these herbs, you can do a little bit more research into it. Cinnamon, oranges, rosemary, cloves, all of those things are very powerful during Yule, and they can be used in various spell work, various methods. There's a way that you could take oranges, insert star anise into the outside of the orange, and then simmer that. And that's a recipe that I'll actually be including later on at the end of this episode. So, real brief segment. I'm going to let you do a little bit of homework this time. Rosemary, star anise, cloves, oranges, cinnamon. All of those work really well and can be used in lots of things. Or you can just throw them all into a pot, maybe put some juice in there, a little bit of water, and just simmer that and make the house smell good. So ways to be magical and smell awesome at the same fucking time. Stick around. All right, and we are back. So now it's time to get into the meat of the segment or the episode, and that is all about Yule, Krampus, the Wild Hunt. Some pretty interesting shit here. So buckle up because we're about to get started. Now, I will preface this by saying, if you are interested in learning about how pagan traditions like Yule were taken, stolen, however you want to view it, and perverted, changed, twisted, again, however you want to brand it, by Christians, then you can refer to season 1's episode. And again, I believe it's called Yule, Xmas, and a Partridge in a Pear Tree. That episode pretty involved because I do go into, you'll see the meme, remember decorating a tree for Christmas is witchcraft. One, that meme annoys me. It's not entirely true. That's a very, very gross paraphrase of what the Bible says. But to paraphrase it properly, it does say, do not take a tree from the forest, bring it into the home, and decorate it with golden tinsel as the pagans do. So it is telling you not to do it, but it's not branding it as witchcraft per se. However, if you want to know about all that type of stuff, what I call like the deep dive into Yule, then you can check that out there. But this one's going to be just kind of more for people that have not ever heard that episode, don't know a whole lot about the holiday or traditions in general, and just kind of a brief overview. So let's get started. All right, so welcome back to the podcast. Now, my dear seekers of the strange and sacred, we're going to dive headfirst into the frosty, magic-filled season of Yule. It's the time of the year when the nights are long, the veil is thin, and the world feels just a little more enchanted. Maybe haunted. We're going to explore the pagan origins of Yule. We're going to unpack the chilling lore of Krampus and follow the eerie echoes of the Wild Hunt as they thunder across the winter sky. And of course, I'll share some witchy ways for you to honor this ancient holiday with rituals, spells, and celebration ideas. So grab a warm drink, light a candle, and let's conjure up some Yuletide magic. So, the pagan origins of Yule, a festival of light in the darkness. Let's start with the roots of Yule, one of the oldest winter festivals in human history. Celebrated around the winter solstice, it's the time when the sun reached its lowest point in the sky, when darkness reigned supreme. But instead of despairing, worrying, our pagan ancestors saw this as a turning point, a time of hope and renewal as the sun's strength began to grow. In Norse traditions, Yule, or Yule, was a 12-day feast that honored the gods, particularly Odin, the Allfather. Odin wasn't just the wise old wanderer you might know from mythology. No, during Yule, he was seen as the leader of the Wild Hunt, and we'll get more into that later. But he was also a protector of his people. The Celts, meanwhile, they celebrated the winter solstice as a sacred day honoring the rebirth of the sun god and the return of life to the frozen earth. Ritual fires were lit, evergreens like holly, ivy, and mistletoe were brought indoors to symbolize life's endurance through winter's chill. And then there's the Yule log. Today we think of it as a chocolate dessert. I'm not going to complain here, but it originally involved burning an actual log in the hearth. And again, I tell you how to make one of those in the season 1 episode. Families carved wishes or protective symbols into the log and burned it to release their intentions. The ashes were kept for good luck in the coming year. Many of those traditions, like decorating trees, lighting candles, and feasting, were later absorbed into Christmas celebrations. So, next time you see a holiday wreath, just remember you're looking at centuries of pagan magic. Now, Krampus, the dark spirit of Yule. He's a horned, devilish anti-Santa who's in recent, I'd say last decade, become a bit of a pop culture icon. But who or what is Krampus really? Krampus comes from the Alpine folklore and is often described as a half-goat, half-demon creature with cloven hooves, curling horns, and a menacing sack. I had a girlfriend that actually referred to me the same way. But I digress. While Saint Nick rewards good children with gifts, Krampus punishes the naughty ones, sometimes with a birch rod, and sometimes by hauling them off in his sack. It's kind of like Santa's naughty list, but with a side of terror. Now, this duality, reward and punishment, can be traced back to pre-Christian traditions. Krampus likely originated as a winter spirit connected to darker pagan deities. In some region, he was seen as a companion to Perkta, the goddess of winter, who was known for her, let's say, creative approach to justice. Even today, Krampusnacht is celebrated on December 5th in parts of Europe. Revelers will dress as Krampus and parade through the streets, chasing and playfully terrorizing onlookers. It's chaotic, it's spooky, and it's a little cathartic. Think of it as a way to purge this year's frustrations. The Christmas Purge, by literally running from your demons. And then we've got the Wild Hunt, a procession of ghosts and gods. If Krampus wasn't eerie enough, let's take to the skies with the Wild Hunt. This chilling legend appears in folklore across Europe and is especially tied to the dark, liminal time of Yule. The Wild Hunt is a spectral procession, sometimes gods, sometimes spirits, and sometimes the restless dead. Picture a ghostly parade thundering across the night sky, led by a powerful figure like Odin, Frau Halle, or even King Arthur, depending on the tale. The hunt was seen as an omen. To witness it might mean death, misfortune, or a year of unrest. Some traditions even warned that being caught outside during the hunt could result in being swept away, or worse, recruited into its ranks. But for witches, the Wild Hunt isn't just a spooky tale, and I'm sorry you hear people talking behind me. They know I'm trying to record an episode, and yet they still want to chatter, knowing that they can be picked up by the microphone. We'll deal with that later. But back to the story. It's a metaphor for transformation. The hunt represents the chaotic forces of nature and the power of letting go. It's a reminder that in the darkest times, we must release what no longer serves us to make way for the light. Now, celebrating Yule as a modern witch. So, now that I've thoroughly spooked and inspired you with some darker versions of Christmas around the world, or Yule, let's talk about how you can celebrate Yule in your own witchy way. You can set up a Yule altar, gather symbols of the season like evergreens, pine cones, candles, sun motifs, crystals like carnelian for warmth or obsidian for grounding. You can put those on your altar. You can host a solstice. I can't talk today, guys. You can host a solstice vigil. Stay awake through the longest night, lighting candles or a fire to honor the sun's rebirth, waiting for the sun to rise the next morning. It's a really beautiful time for meditation and journaling. You can honor Krampus. Write down your bad habits or negative thoughts on pieces of paper and then burn them in a cauldron or fireproof bowl. Think of it like giving Krampus your baggage so that you can start fresh, and so he hopefully won't stuff you in his sack. You can create a wild hunt ritual. You can stand outside under the night sky and visualize the hunt sweeping through the darkness. Imagine it carrying away your fears and doubts, leaving you feeling lighter and freer. Some people choose not to do that because of the myths that you're not supposed to see it or bad things could happen. You choose. And then you could feast with a purpose. You could prepare a Yule feast with intention, Add magical correspondences to your dishes like cinnamon for protection, rosemary for cleansing. You could raise a toast to the return of the light. And now I'm going to give you a simple Yule ritual for beginners. Here's an easy Yule ritual you can try tonight. You'll need a white or gold candle, a sprig of evergreen, a quiet moment to yourself, and then you're going to light the candle and hold the evergreen sprig. You're going to close your eyes and say, "On this longest night, I honor the rebirth of the sun. May its light bring renewal, warmth, and joy into my life. So mote it be." Burn the sprig, safely of course, or leave it on your altar as a symbol of the light returning. Simple, yes. Meaningful, yes. And a lovely way to connect with the Yule's energy. So there you go. That's it for today's journey through Yule's history and magical traditions. Now, whether you're lighting a Yule log, toasting to the sun, or running from Krampus in your dreams, just remember the Yule is about balance, the darkness and the light, the old and the new, all about duality. So now I'm going to take a brief pause. When I come back, I'm going to have a couple of recipes and things that you can do to kind of celebrate this time of the year. And then we're going to wrap this episode up. All right, be right back. All right, we're back. Now is the final section of the episode. I'm going to give you two different rituals/recipes that you can do to celebrate the Yuletide season. So one of these is called a pomander. Basically, you take an orange and cloves and you push the cloves into the orange. You can do it in various patterns or decorate it in certain ways. And that, in addition to making the house smell amazing, is also a way to honor the sun's return and everything else around this time of year. But then I'm also going to, upon further thought, instead of making you go back, I'm going to give you the instructions of how to make an actual Yule log, a traditional Yule log that you can make with your family. By the time this comes out, you should have at least a couple of weeks or around that amount of time before the holidays hit. Let's see, today is, so you've got a week and a half. So go ahead and make one now. And then that way it's ready for Yule on the 21st. And then you can even keep it around for the Christmas holidays. So without further ado, we're going to dive right into that. Now, what I said we would go over first is pomanders, and that's Pomanders. Orange pomanders is kind of what we're talking about. They are also referred to as Yule pomanders. They go back as far as like the 13th century. It was back then it could be a metal or wooden ball that was hollowed out, filled with different herbs, spices, and perfumes. There is a book called Yule Pomander Magic, and in that the author even talks about how in the 18th century wealthy people began studying oranges with cloves and giving them as gifts to friends. It was kind of a generous gift, but also a way of showing your status in the community and society at large. So it was nice, but egotistical, I guess you could say. But it is a good book, Yule Pomander Magic. I can't think of the author's name off the top of my head. But if you Google that, you'll find it. Aromatherapy has always been and remains and probably will continue to be a very powerful way of working magic and things like that. As far as health and beauty, essential oil necklaces abound these days, and they're really cool. I like them a lot, but you can actually do aromatherapy at home without having to have, all the expensive oils and things like that. Beautiful thing about orange and clove is how it kind of combines to make, traditional Yule scents, but also it adds a little bit to your witchcraft as well. The orange can represent the return of the sun. It's also a wonderful ally for love, fertility, prosperity, good luck, friendship, strengthening bonds. Clove at the same time has many of the same corresponding attributes. And then you add them together and they're just kind of like a powerhouse of goodwill and blessings for your season. Not to mention the Yule pomander, you can give it to a non-pagan friend and it still shouldn't cause any issues. They may just think it's really pretty. Now, to make a Yule pomander or an orange pomander, you're going to need oranges, however many you want, whole cloves, not the pieces, you need the whole ones, a toothpick or a skewer, and then some ground cinnamon. Now what you're going to do is you're going to use the toothpick to make a hole in the skin of the orange, and then you're going to push the clove into that hole. You're going to do that one at a time, and you're going to create a pattern around the outside. You can do it all over, you can do it in pattern, whatever floats your boat. It can be simple or complex. Now while you're doing this though, the whole time you want to focus whatever your intention is going to be for that pomander. While you're putting these cloves in, you're going to consider the person that you're giving it to or making it for, what they may need in their life each time you push a clove into that orange. You're going to focus that intention. Now when you've completed it, you're going to carefully roll the orange and cinnamon. Sometimes because of the way the cloves are sticking out of it, that's hard to do. So what I do is just kind of dust it, turning the orange in my hand as I'm dusting it to get it all around. And then you're going to add any additional fragrance you might want to add to it to boost your intention, and then put that in a bowl to dry. You can attach ribbons so that you can hang it on a tree. And then after the holidays, you can actually place it in a paper sack with some extra cinnamon, put it in a cool, dry place, and let it finish drying out. And then that way you have a permanent fixture for the holidays for each going year. If you prefer, you can also return them to the earth after the holiday season, and let that kind of speak to your blessings as well. It's a really fun activity to do with the kids. Kids love making different patterns that sometimes they spell their names on it. It's very meditative if you do it alone, and it's a really nice devotional practice for a solitary practitioner especially. So yeah, have fun with the pomanders. Let me know what you think. Take some pictures and send to me. I'd love to see kind of what patterns and what you do with yours. Next is going to be the Yule log. Now the Yule log was a very important part of traditions and pagan families of the past. Families would be on the lookout for their Yule log all year long. It was something that they looked forward to. They would search for the largest log they could find and use it during their celebrations. During the episode from season 1 about Yule, I even mentioned, and I think I showed some pictures of way back when, they would find the biggest log tree in the forest they could find, fell that tree, and with tons of people drag it back into the village to make a massive Yule log out of. Luckily, it's kind of been parsed down into a household project these days, but it was always done and burned on the winter solstice, the shortest and darkest day of the year, when ancient people would worry that sunlight might cease to exist. And so back then, it wasn't just because it was pretty or traditional. They had some magical intention into that as well. It can be argued that it goes back as far as the Neolithic period. How much truth there is to that, I don't know. I will tell you that the tradition of Yule, as we talked about earlier, has always been about feasting and wassailing and drinking and dancing, celebrating the victory of the Oak King over the Holly King, and both of those symbolize summer and winter, by the way. And yeah, so it's always been about that. But the Yule log was in fact a full tree that was brought into the house and either burned from the bottom with the entirety of the tree sticking out into the room or cut into sections and burned for 12 different days. They would save the ashes and use that to fertilize crops in the spring, which is still a really good idea, by the way, mixing ash into your soil. We do that here. And if there were any pieces of the Yule log left over, they could save it, and it would bring good luck through the next year. It could be stored under someone's bed for good luck, and as a superstitious way of keeping lightning away from the home. I have no fucking clue why. But if you want to make your own Yule log, similar to like ones they used to do then, it's just a few simple natural supplies. Most of it can be found outdoors or around the house. Everything we used, we foraged and grew in our garden, with the exception of oranges and cinnamon sticks. But cinnamon soon, because we do have a cinnamon tree. But anyway, you're going to need a dried log. You generally want like a large one. The size is going to be up to you based on where you're going to put it and use it. If you're actually going to burn it in your fireplace and you have a big fire, just judge accordingly. You're going to need a power drill. You can use a hand drill if you want, but it's going to be a little bit harder. You're going to need some candles, some twine, some floral wire, hot glue gun, greenery like pine or spruce or cedar, dried orange slices, cranberries, cinnamon sticks, pine cones. Basically that type of stuff is just however you want to decorate it. And then basically what you're going to do is if you have access to a hole saw, you want to get one of those on your power drill, and it's just going to make holes in the top of the log for your candles. That's what I would recommend. You can use a chisel or a file, things like that to do that with, but a little bit more difficult. Don't have to have a hole saw, but it does make it easy. You only want to make them about 1 inch deep too, just barely enough to keep the candles upright. Some people do sand out a smooth spot where they're going to put the candles, melt some wax, and stick it down on the log that way. Not as secure, but it does work. You're going to get your greenery in bunches, tie the ends with twine or the floral wire to hold them together, and then you're going to just decorate and attach the greenery on the log around those candles however you want. You can use hot glue gun, you can use the twine, whichever. I prefer twine, but it's again up to you. Basically twine, because when I burn it, I don't want the chemicals from the glue and stuff to get into the air. Then you can insert other elements like orange slices, cinnamon stick bundles, dried lavender, pine cones, whatever you feel drawn to do. And at this point, it's more or less just decorating it how you want. Now, how you burn your Yule log is entirely up to you. You can actually burn it in your fireplace or an outdoor fire pit. If you don't have one of those, you can just light the candles on the log and let that be like the same as burning it for you. That's what a lot of people do because not everybody has a fireplace. So yeah, that's it. Pretty simple, right? And I'm gonna put some pictures on the TikTok. I don't fuck with Instagram too much anymore, mainly because they've locked me out of my account and they're making it a gigantic pain in the ass to get back in, but also because Instagram's just boring to me. Most of my interaction these days is on Facebook and TikTok. So I'll put some pictures on TikTok of everything that we talked about in this episode. And yeah, I hope you liked it. I know I'm a little more muted as far as like my energy level, but that's just because I'm again recovering. My voice is a little out of it, again recovering. But thank you so much. I'm so glad to be back doing the show. I've got some really cool guests lined up for this season, one of which was supposed to be on in season 3. We're going to get them on this season. That's a demonologist. So yeah, there's some really cool guests that are coming on. There's some really cool topics that I'm talking about. there's some really cool things in the works for the show as a whole. So if you liked this episode, definitely make sure you subscribe. I would love it if you liked it too, but I'm more interested in subscribing because that gets the word out and helps these episodes get pushed out to more and more people. If you have friends that are into this same type of path, recommend the episode to them. Recommend the podcast to them. I need all the help I can get. Let's grow this even bigger, because my ultimate goal for this show is to empower people magically, to let everybody know that no matter who you are, no matter where you are, that you can learn how to empower yourself through the magical, natural energies that surround us. So until next time, I'm Mike D. This is Son of a Witch Podcast, and you're fucking awesome.